Motion dies. Councilmember Khamis.
So I've heard a lot, and I also agree with the mayor's assessment on my colleague's memo with the current motion on the table, and I also agree to some of the comments that Councilmember Diep. I didn't support his motion because I thought it was a little too vague, and I apologize for saying that, but it's a little vague. My whole point, my whole reason for speaking is I want not just something that you think is common sense, but I want something that's effective and enforceable. While you may think that what you proposed is common sense, it is not common sense to many of us. It would never have addressed the mass shootings in Las Vegas. Nothing here that we're talking about would have addressed that. There's a lot of heated rhetoric, and I totally sympathize with what people are trying to do here. Losing a child, and it's very emotional to me as well. I came from a war zone. I don't necessarily like guns at all. I don't own a gun. I don't have guns in my house, and I don't go shooting for sport or to hunt animals. I do believe in the Second Amendment, however, and the people's right to exercise their freedoms. And so while I support making sure that we don't kill each other, I do want whatever we pass here to be enforceable and effective. I don't think what you asked for is enforceable, and here's why. Chief, if I may, how would you enforce somebody making sure? How would you, as a police officer, enforce that a weapon stays on their person or in their possession? How do you enforce that?
Well, I'll give you two scenarios where that could happen, and as far-fetched as it may be, although it would be difficult to prove, but perhaps you get a call for service, you're at a house, and you're inside the home, and you see that there's a handgun that's somewhere other than where this individual was at. Quite possibly is one. The other way would be, we find a stolen gun that's been stolen, a reported stolen gun, and either the individual confesses that it wasn't locked, or later on through follow-up, we may find out that they hadn't locked it or secured it.
But basically, you're saying it's extremely difficult to prove.
No, there's no question that would be very difficult to enforce.
If I'm watching the football game and my gun is next to me on the couch and I need to go to take a bathroom break, it is no longer in my possession, right? Would that be the determining factor? It's no longer under my control. That's another thing that I'm saying, that this is so vague, it is tough for me to parse out what is the real law, and that's why I can't support it. It's not that I don't think it warrants thinking about. I just think that the staff recommendation is much easier, cleaner to follow. I'm very supportive of the staff's direction, the one that's currently up on the monitor here. This is something that I think is enforceable, and even if I have to say this. As just a caring parent, even if I had a gun lock and a gun and I put it in a gun lock, it doesn't necessarily mean that my sons would not be able to get into it. My sons have hacked my phone so many times they know patterns, they know digits. If they want to get into that, they very well could. So I don't know that this is going to prevent anything, even voting for this. I don't think it may prevent a lot of what we're hoping to prevent. But I am willing to vote for the staff recommendation. And while I really respect my colleagues for doing their best to do more, I just don't think their memo carved out a enforceable and effective solution to this. I cannot even see it being enforced in any way whatsoever. Let me ask you something else. Even this memo here. So how would you enforce what staff is currently recommending?
Well, again, the same, it would be difficult to enforce. We'd have to find a gun that's been stolen, report it stolen, then prove that that individual homeowner or gun owner hadn't secured it properly when they weren't home. I think the intent of the staff recommendation, and one is because it does not have the, the unintended consequences that's, as you go further down the continuum may have. But ultimately, in the end, what I have to say with our recommendation, and any of these recommendations, quite frankly, is you're counting on the people that want to uphold the law to be the ones that are doing this. And so you're counting on the individuals that want to be law-abiding to be the ones that are locking their guns up.
Yeah, and that's another thing that bothered me about my colleague's memo as well. It applies only to law-abiding citizens, the people who actually have a permit for their gun, and quite frankly, more the people who we really want not to have guns. They still have them anyway. There was a whole example of things that people weren't, at the beginning of the presentation, there was an example of people who were not allowed to have a gun for mental health reasons and domestic violence reasons. How are we enforcing those laws? How are we taking away the guns from them?
In the past, there has been a list of prohibited persons. There's a prohibited persons list that we work with the district attorney's office. That in the past we have had the staff available to go out, and you voluntarily go out to each residence one by one and start taking the guns away from the prohibited persons list. But that has not happened in a while.
I see. So we cannot enforce really important gun law, which is taking away guns from people who have been not allowed to carry guns due to mental incapacity and or been convicted of a domestic violence. So we can't even take it. We don't have enough staff to take away guns from those people, but we're creating new laws to penalize people who are lawfully permitted, and we're going to make them carry around the gun on them while in their home at all times.
I will say, Councilmember, we do have that prohibited persons list that we've worked on in the past, but no, we have not been able to continue on that program.
And, yes, well, you get the gist. I'm hoping that we start enforcing the laws that we have. I'm willing to support this if there's a substitute motion. In fact, I'll make the substitute motion to accept the staff recommendation. There is a substitute? No.
The substitute died, so there's still an underlying motion. So there's room for
I will make a motion to take the substitute motion and do the. And does that include the period to report?
It will if you include it.
I will include that period to report a stolen gun to make sure that people who get their guns stolen actually have time to report it. So I'll make that motion. Okay.
Motion second.
Again, I'm not trying to belittle the work in any way. I have a deep respect for you, especially since you're a law enforcement officer. But I just want us to work on things that are truly common sense and something that we can effectively enforce. And that's my whole goal. Thank you.